The New York City Police Department has released surveillance video of an undercover officer tackling and handcuffing former tennis star James Blake. Blake was just standing in front of a hotel in New York Wednesday when the officer approached him and wrestled him to the ground. It was apparently a case of mistaken identity. The officer thought Blake was a suspect in a fraudulent credit card ring. The police commissioner has apologized to Blake, said he did not like what he saw in the video.
Concerns I have about what I witnessed on the video, as well as briefings I've received by Chief Resnick, the inappropriateness of the amount of force that was used during the arrest.
The NYPD says it's reviewing previous complaints about the officer who tackled Blake. Vincent Hill is a former Nashville police officer. He's in Atlanta tonight. Vincent, welcome. What do you make of the video?
John, it's very disturbing. Just the approach of the officer. You see James Blake there just standing, minding his own business. I believe he was texting, and here's a guy that doesn't identify himself as an officer that basically just tackles him to the ground. So, it's a good thing that Mr. Blake did comply and did not resist, because I think it could have been a lot more tragic than what it was.
So what's procedure in a case like this? I mean, it was just a credit card fraud case. I mean, it wasn't necessarily a murderer or rapist. Why so much force?
Absolutely, John. I think the officer used more than the amount of force necessary to effect the arrest. And, I used to work undercover, and, one of the things when you're investigating a crime, especially one that's not violent, the proper protocol would have been to approach Mr. Blake, maybe ask for identification, explain to him why you're questioning him, and then proceed from there. But to actually run up on someone by yourself, not identifying yourself as a police officer, he put himself at risk as well as the public.
All right, so even James Blake says this is not about race, but about unnecessary use of force. However, James Blake is African American, this police officer is white. And given what's happened over the last year, how does this story fit into the narrative about police who are doing things they shouldn't do?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I don't think the case itself was about race. I mean, after all, they did have a legal right to make contact with Mr. Blake. However, I think the officer's actions, of course, we now know that 2 other cases have been questionable as well. So all of that ties into what society already sees as police just being these rogue officers taking down people anytime they want.
And now everything's on video. At least it seems like everything's on video. So what does that mean for those officers who aren't doing the right thing? I mean, they got to worry about this, right?
Yeah, absolutely they should worry. I mean, especially in a city like New York, where there's a video camera every 5 or 10 feet, along with cell phone video. They should definitely worry about things like that and realize there's always someone watching and there's always a tape rolling somewhere.
You talk to police officers. What are police saying about all of these sorts of videos?
Well, it's twofold, John. And, police officers that I talk to, usually when the officer is wrong, we all agree that the officer is wrong, but there are videos out there where, although society sees it as police brutality or excessive use of force, it was the force necessary to effect the arrest. So, your average officer, when something is wrong, they're going to say it's wrong.
Is this going to change behavior? Is this going to change policy in police departments across America, or is this just going to continue?
I think it will continue for right now, John, and here's why. I mean, most of the officers that are in question are doing this stuff have been on for years. So, this wave of social media and this wave of video footage of police is still fairly new. So I don't think we're at the point in this country where we're going to change policy.
Is it just that police chiefs in these towns are putting up with this stuff? I mean, why don't they get rid of the bad apples, even if they're just a few?
Yeah, absolutely. They should get rid of the bad apples. And I think this officer, given his past history and given this, and especially Mr. Blake's celebrity status, I think he will be dealt with accordingly.
Vincent Hill, it's always good to see you. Thanks for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure.